Carver, Hamboards, Smoothstar, SwellTech, Waterborne, and Yow. These are my favorite Surfskate brands at the moment. So I'm kind of just gonna do a straight up brain dump, if that's even a phrase. I don't know. Kind of like I'm talking to my friend, describing how each rides. And if you're really interested in Surfskates, make sure to stick around to the end, because I'm gonna share some additional tips to help you avoid the mistakes that I personally made. Now, before the keyboard warriors start typing like,
"But Billy, what about decathlon? What about slide? What about flow?"
Chill. I know there's a lot of other brands out there, but these are just the most popular ones based on the data. I mean, let's be real. If I bought all the Surfskate brands on the market right now, I'd be severely broke. Severely. All right, so I'm just gonna start in alphabetical order. So let's start with Carver. Compared to the other Surfskates out there, Carver just isn't as aggressive. I'd more so classify it as like a surf cruiser. I'll take my Carver out when I wanna go for a longer cruise, but still want something that can carve harder than like a traditional cruiser, if that makes any sense. Now, even though if you look at like something like this, which is the C5, it's bushing based, but the geometry of the truck makes it so it's super carvy. It might not look like it at first glance, but it is. I was pretty surprised. They have 3 different types of trucks. They're C7, CX, and C5. The C7s have a spring with a pivoting arm, very similar to other Surfskate adapters out there. And then the CX and C5 have bushings and some wizardry geometry. I have all 3 models, and I mostly end up using my CX just because they feel more responsive and fluid. That's just how I feel. Other people might have a different opinion on that. I don't know. My C5s are fairly new and I don't have enough experience with them, so there could be a difference. I know they're like a street-driven truck versus the others. If you have experience with these trucks and you want to share what you think the differences are, drop a comment below. Depending how you look at it, I'd say the downside of Carver, they're just really not as aggressive for carving compared to all these other brands. Plus, if I'm gonna be even more honest here, I feel like they lack information in helping you pick the right build. And that's not just to solo Carver out, but I do think a lot of Surfskate brands don't have enough information to help you pick the right board for you. The length, the wheelbase, all that fun stuff. Kind of just seems like they'll sell you really anything. I'm pretty sure that Carver is like the original Surfskate brand, the oldest one out there. And you can honestly tell by just looking at the components that makes up their builds. Very high quality. Yeah, I would just say that they're more mellow. Next, we got Hamboards, which I'm gonna be referring to their HST 200 trucks, since that's really their surf skatey ones. The unique part about Hamboards is they have a spring in the front and back truck, which allows you to do some super aggressive rail-to-rail carving. They're also pretty interesting because they have boards that go up to 6.5 feet. So not only are they trying to replicate the feeling of surfing, they're legit trying to replicate like almost actual surfboard sizes. So that's crazy. Almost every one of these other brands uses a normal truck on the back, which doesn't give you that aggressive rail-to-rail feel that Hamboards does. I was talking to my friend about this recently actually, and when you have a normal truck in the back and you have like a spring adapter in the front, the back truck almost acts as like an anchor. And when the front truck is swiveling back and forth, it's a lot easier to pump from a standstill and carry that momentum through, versus when you have both trucks with springs, it's so aggressive rail to rail that it's just very hard to carry that momentum. I'd say they're ideal for low-key hills so that you can always maintain that speed and you don't have to rely off of pumping. Or if you pick up one of their land paddles, that's just another great way of maintaining speed. I actually recently saw they dropped an electric version of their Surfskates. I think the combination of having the momentum from the electric motor and that aggressive rail-to-rail turning is gonna be a blast. So Hamboards, super high quality Surfskates, definitely on the larger and more expensive end, but they give you that aggressive rail-to-rail feel. All right, moving on. Then there's Smoothstar, which has a very fluid and consistent feel to it. They use a tension spring. Now I forgot to mention this in my Yow versus Smoothstar comparison, which is also gonna be linked in the description below if you're curious, but they include an Allen key with each board so you can adjust the tension of the tension spring. So that's pretty cool. Although that's something that I haven't personally tested yet, just because I haven't needed to. Like, it's been a blast to ride just out of the box. I find with Smoothstar that one pump will take you further than all the other Surfskates. It's also interesting because Smoothstar, out of all these brands, are laser focused on being like a functionality based surf trainer, not a Surfskate. They've made sure to correct me there. I've mentioned that they're Surfskates. They're like, nah dog, we're surf trainers. But for instance, on my Holy Toledo, it's completely flat. There's no concave. The aesthetic is but but I do gotta give it to them. Their system does allow me to focus on my surf technique. I kind of like to explain it to people that Smoothstar is like a no-brainer trainer. And what I mean by that is you don't really have to think about it. When I first got my Smoothstar, I was able to hop on it and pick it up right off the bat. Like there's really no thinking involved, which is nice because I've noticed I can really focus on engaging like my upper body, which is what I struggle with in surfing. I'd say downside of Smoothstar at the moment at least is that they have a lot of trouble keeping up with stock. I only have one Smoothstar. I want to get another, but just to get my Holy Toledo, I had to wait like, I think it was like 2 or 3 months. They also don't sell their adapters separately anymore, which is kind of a bummer in my opinion. I get it, they're trying to protect their brand, but I would have loved to pick up another one just to mess around with different setups. SwellTech has the most aggressive carving out of all of these brands because their front adapter rotates a full 360 degrees and they have a spring on both sides. I mean, I gotta give it to them. It's definitely the most innovative, gnarliest design I've seen out of all the brands. All right, so you know how I said that Smoothstar was like a no-brainer trainer? SwellTech is a brainer trainer. With SwellTech, there's a higher learning curve, and I'd say out of all these brands, it has the highest learning curve. If I'm gonna be honest here, I originally was not a fan of SwellTech. I'm starting to come around to it because when you're learning to ride this thing, the front often jackknifes and throws you off the front. But the more I ride it, the less I get it to jackknife, and the more I started to realize that, yo, with surfing, when you go too front heavy, you nosedive and it's over. So it really does just kind of depend what type of riding style you're looking to do. Originally, wasn't a fan of SwellTech. I'm starting to come around to it. I know there's a lot of people out there that love SwellTech, and because it has springs exposed on each side, it's definitely not gonna be as durable as the others. Though I haven't had any issues with it yet. I have seen a common theme online of people saying that their springs have broken compared to a lot of the other brands out there. But then I've also read that their customer service is really solid, understanding. They send you new springs if you need it. Yeah. All right, next up we have Waterborne, which is the universal Surfskate adapter. If I had to compare it to other adapters, I'd say it's pretty similar to Yao and Smoothstar, although it's definitely more divey than Smoothstar. If anything, I'd say it's the most similar to Yao, just without the springiness. It actually has a cube bushing rather than a spring. I've been recommending Waterborne a bunch recently because it gives people the opportunity to test to see if they like surf skating without committing and spending hundreds of dollars on a complete. Like you can buy one of their kits for I think $70 to $100, and then you can start messing around with different variations just to see what wheelbase you like, what deck length. I think that's why Waterborne is just crushing it right now. It's a very smart approach. Something I forgot to mention in my Waterborne review was their rail adapter. Pretty interesting because you put this on your back trucks and it allows you to get a more aggressive rail-to-rail lean. I mean, I'm starting to see a bunch of people post on social media mounting Waterborne's rail adapter with the Yao, with the Smoothstar, with even Hamboards, which seems a little dangerous, honestly. If I could go back in time, I would have bought a Waterborne adapter kit and tested a bunch of different setups before fully committing to a complete. Could have saved a lot of money. As much as I love Surfskates, some people just might not like the feeling. They'd rather just have a normal cruiser and carve on that. But to each is their own. You do you, bro. You do you. All right, and finally, there's Yao, which uses a thick coil spring and is honestly my favorite Surfskate brand at the moment. I'm not claiming that it's the best at all of these. I'm just saying that for my preference, I'm just a fan of that more divey, deeper surf skatey feel, and Yao has that. Now recently they dropped their Meraki system, which is smaller, lighter, and apparently more stable, although I haven't done enough testing to really determine that. I'm gonna be posting an in-depth review on our website comparing these models, so I'm getting to it, guys. I'm sorry. As far as aesthetics go, I think Yao is out in front, really just for my personal preference. I love the way they look. Plus, I'm pretty sure that they manufacture almost all their parts in-house, which is why that they're restocking faster than other brands. So that's pretty cool. Downside of Yao is that if you're based in the US, which I know a lot of my viewers are, shipping is expensive since it's coming from the Basque Country in Spain. But that also applies to Smoothstar as well. Kind of a bummer. I have a full video that compares Yao and Smoothstar, so check that out if you're curious. All right, and lastly, like I mentioned in the beginning, I'm gonna go over some tips and additional information that I wish I knew when I was first picking a surf skate. The first additional little tip or info that you should know is that because Surfskates have an adapter in the front, it sets them off the ground a lot higher because then you need a thick riser pad in the back. So compared to like a normal cruiser, it's a lot higher. Like I can't tell you the amount of DMs that I've got on Instagram of people basically just being like, dude, I feel like I'm riding a skyscraper right now, dog. I'm used to it by now and I don't mind it, but just be aware of that. The first Surfskate that I ever bought was the Penny Highline, which wasn't too bad because I bought it for $180 and it honestly just got me stoked about surf skating. But after I started experimenting with other boards, I realized that the deck length and wheelbase was just too short for my preference. Then I got a Carver probably without doing enough research. And again, the wheelbase was too small. I think it was like 14 inches. I know this is gonna sound very generic, but before you go and pull a trigger on a Surfskate, just define what type of riding you wanna do. If I would've just taken the time to be like, all right, I want something that's very aggressive, it's a deeper carve, I can pump from a standstill, and I did some more research, then would have got a Yow as my first board. Not had to have spent money on my first 2 Surfskates, and I just look at it as I can share that experience so that you don't make that mistake. What you want to determine is what your ideal deck length is and wheelbase.
But Billy, how do I know what deck length or wheelbase I want when I've never tried a Surfskate before?
And especially if you can't go out to like your local shop and they don't carry these boards yet and test what you like, it's tough. I get it. I found that in the 16 to 18 inch wheelbase is ideal for like flowy, surfy feel, for me at least. Then I found for deck length, anywhere from like 30 to 34 inches is ideal. It's for me, but I wanna share my experience so that maybe it can help you. I'm 5'11", 160 pounds, and I just wanna emphasize, as much as I like joke about it's personal preference, dude, it really is. Just because Yow is my favorite doesn't mean it's gonna be yours. So take this information with a grain of salt, do your own research, and come to your own conclusion. A helpful resource when I was first getting started was the Surfskate subreddit. There's a bunch of awesome people on there that are more than willing to share their knowledge with everyone. It was so helpful when I was getting started. And then a shameless plug here, but I put a bunch of in-depth reviews on all of these Surfskates. If you don't see a specific one, I'm working on it and I'm constantly updating it. If you want an in-depth look at the parts of all these, then I'm gonna link it below, shredshack.com. Check it out. I've spent a lot of time on there building that out, trying to create just valuable content for you. If you found this video helpful at all, I would really appreciate it if you hit the like and subscribe button. It's free and it helps the channel grow. We upload every Friday, whether it's related to surf skating, surfing, longboarding, any sort of board sports, this is it. I'll see you guys soon. Later.